Hey, Pretty Girl Club. I wanted to talk about the obsession with Nicolandria. For the record, no, I have not watched the reunion yet. I'm waiting for the bootleg version to load on my phone right now as I'm recording this. But I see a lot of women, I see a lot of black women, a lot of monocultural black women who have not dealt with the white community a lot. They're putting Nick on a pedestal. Let's actually talk about who Nick is. Number one, Nick actually had a racist post on his TikTok. There was a post of him and one of his friends dissecting an animal, and then he put hashtag Chinese. So in the TikTok clip, they were dissecting a cat. You know how there's that stereotype that Asian people eat cats and dogs. So it's hilarious how when it comes to people like Sierra, you know how she got canceled or whatever because she said she gets Botox because her eyes look chinky. Yet I don't see the same energy for white male Nick when it comes to calling out his internalized racism. Okay, so let's erase that. Let's pretend that that didn't happen because like I said, the black community as a whole, they don't actually care about colorism, texturism, featureism or racism because they put racists like Nick on a pedestal all the time. But the reason I didn't like Nick on the show, this is before Nick and Olandria became a thing. Nick was always one of my least favorites on the show. Him and Ace were the most annoying to me on the show. With Nick, what I didn't like about him was he literally jumped from girl to girl. He just came off as very sleazy, very horny for anybody. He came off as the type of guy that will just take any girl that will be with him. I didn't like how he acted with Bella and Sierra. So Bella, I don't know if you guys remember Bella, but she was the one where she didn't want to get too sexual on the show. So once Nick realized he wasn't getting any play from Bella, he wasn't getting enough sexual attention from her, he decided to go for Sierra, who was putting out more. Oh, and this is another thing. Olandria was Nick's fourth choice, was it? Because from what I remember about Nick, he talked to Bella. Bella didn't give him enough sexual attention. So then he went with Sierra. Even after him and Sierra had sex, he still didn't want to close off yet. He tried to flirt with Andrina. That didn't work out. He was obsessed with Jaden. I don't know if anybody caught that, but I definitely noticed that. I love Jaden, by the way. She's one of my favorites. But Jaden didn't fall for the bullshit. So once it didn't work out with all four of those women, then once he got eliminated, basically, once he's on the border of getting kicked off the show, then suddenly he says to Olandria, oh, well, I've always had feelings for you and I've always wanted to explore. Black women, what happened to the talking point of if he wanted to, he would? What happened to wanting to be pursued? What happened to the hypergamy talking points? So you're telling me that because somebody's white, that they don't have to follow any of that? I guess it's okay for him to go and fuck other women first. Oh, and by the way, they talk a lot about how they don't want to be the first black woman that a white man has been with. Have you ever heard that talking point? They'll be like, oh, I don't want to be his dark-skinned experiment. I don't want to be his black experiment. Okay, well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's exactly how Nick is coming off. That's exactly how he comes off with Olandria. Look at all of the women that he was hitting on before during the show. Why did he feel safe pursuing those women and then he never pursued Olandria like that? And then there was also a clip where Olandria was like, oh, well, you know, you had a lot going on. You had a lot of women interested in you. So Olandria also admitted that she basically felt like Nick wouldn't like her. So you're telling me that that's the energy that black women are supposed to settle for? So all of this talk about being classy and I don't go on coffee dates and he needs to make sure that he prefers dark-skinned black women, all of that is out the window. That's why I don't take any of these talking points seriously because you're literally celebrating a woman who got picked in 5th place. She got picked 5th on the show. And then after the show, I'm assuming they're boyfriend-girlfriend now. I'm just going to assume. I haven't watched the reunion, but I'm going to assume they're boyfriend-girlfriend now. I mean, I would hope that they're boyfriend and girlfriend by now. Otherwise, that would be extremely humiliating. But also, if you look at the interviews from Nick, even after the show, whenever they asked him, oh, are you and Olandria exclusive? He literally said no, they weren't even exclusive. So after the show, he still didn't pick Olandria and say, oh, wait, I want to be exclusive with you immediately so that we can, like, see where this goes. No, he's still out dating other women, fucking other women, doing whatever he wants, but then in the public eye, he gets to be seen with Olandria. That's part of why I don't like Nick. I feel like Nick, first of all, Olandria is way more popular than Nick. Let's be honest. I have never met a stan of Nick. I've never come across any fans of Nick. I have come across fans of Olandria, The only fans that I see of Nick are women who supported Olandria. So they're only supporting Nick because Nick is attached to Olandria. So that tells me that this man, he didn't have like the popularity or the clout. It's not like he was a fan favorite, so Olandria really could stand on her own. If we're talking just based on popularity, just solely based on branding and optics and being an influencer, Olandria could easily just still do what she's doing without Nick. Why does she need Nick in order to succeed? She doesn't. Another thing I didn't like about Nick's behavior on the show, so again, this is before Olandria. This is before I even knew he would end up with Olandria. I didn't like how Nick was a hypocrite because he was over here fucking Sierra, and he didn't want her to explore with Elon. Remember, Elon was like into Sierra, so he wasn't a fan of that, yet he's over here exploring everything. He tried to explore Andrina, he tried to explore Jaden, he tried to explore Bella. There's a clip of him in the beginning of the season where it shows him making out with Bella, and then literally seconds later going into the photo booth and then making out with Sierra. Is that really the type of character that we're going to put on a pedestal in the Black community? What happened to the talking point of you want a man who values you, you want a man who chooses you, you want a man who respects women, not a man who sees women as a source of sexual validation? Notice how quickly Nick and Bella stopped talking. Nick basically cut off Bella because she didn't want to like have sex. She didn't want to get too sexual with him. And so he essentially got bored and moved on. So that shows you Nick's character. He values a woman based off of how much sexual attention she gives him. And after the show, Nick is using Olandria for clout. I'm not saying that they can't like each other. I'm not saying they can't have a thing, but I will say that Nick has a history of being ignorant and racist on his social media. He has a history of not dating Black, unambiguous, dark-skinned women. So that whole talking point, oh, well, I prefer a man who prefers Black women. Okay, well, based on his own history, go look at his other ex from before the show. Her name's Devin. She looks just like Bella. So he has a history of dating all racially ambiguous, or I guess you could say other women of color, or like women of other background. None of them are dark-skinned, is what I'm trying to say. So the whole talking point of, I don't want to be the dark-skin experiment, okay, well, that's what this is giving. It's giving, I'm just going to see where this goes. I'm going to see how much money I can make off of this. And also the thing I never liked about Nick was he always came off as being very hungry to be popular. That's the main thing I didn't like about Nick's character, because on the show, he was cool with Huda. That's another thing. He was so cool with Huda on the show. When people were ganging up on Huda, he was standing up for her. But then a couple seconds later, when some new people came in the house, now he's trying to fit in with the new people. So the new bombshells like Iris, he wants to fit in with people like Iris. So now he's throwing Huda under the bus. That shows me that he just wants popularity. He just wants to fit in with everybody. And he uses his charm and his humor to do that. And also, Nick is not good at standing 10 toes down. That was another thing I didn't like about Nick. Like, Nick, if you didn't like Bella, or if you just wanted sex or whatever, just stand 10 toes down. Be more like Ace. Even Ace was honest. He was like, look, don't touch me, don't talk to me, don't call me babe, don't do this. So it's like, Nick, I would have had more respect for you had you just been more honest with both Bella and Sierra. But what Nick would do, if you look back at the clips, is he would tell one girl, like, oh yeah, I have feelings for you, I have a connection with you. Then he would go and tell the other girl, oh, I have a connection with you. So when he did that with Olandria, that's the first thing I was thinking when I was watching the show. I was like, oh, he's saying this because he just doesn't want to leave the house. That's obvious. Because again, if he wanted to, he would. If he truly saw Olandria's value from the beginning, he wouldn't have waited until after 4 other girls with completely different phenotypes. So after all those 4 girls didn't work out, after all those 4 like brunettes basically didn't work out, then he goes to the 5th choice, which is Olandria. So is that what Black women are supposed to settle for now? You're supposed to celebrate being the 5th choice? And you know how they say how you get them is how you'll lose him? Okay, so if you got a man based on him feeling like he had no other options, and, him wanting to stay in the house, those were his options. Either leave the villa and go back home, or stay in the house and just figure out some sort of dating scenario with Olandria. He literally stayed there so that he could stay in the house. That's what I believe. I stand 10 toes down on it because after the show, he would have tried to lock Olandria down faster. He would have at least been exclusive or something like, hey, let's just try to see where this goes. Let's try to focus on each other for now. The show just ended, and then we will decide if we want to be together or not. So why did it take him so long? Why is it that he was putting her in the friend zone? And then I see some people saying, oh, well, Olandria put him in the friend zone. Okay, still. He sure had no problem being in Olandria's friend zone while fucking Sierra and making out with Bella. Even his own parents called him out. I actually really like Nick's family, but even his own parents called him out for his trashy behavior. Did you guys catch that? His parents kind of remind me of like my background. His parents called him out and said, why did you do that? Like, why are you just sleeping around? Like, basically, we raised you better than that. Why are you over here sleeping with women? You know, you're kind of taking every opportunity you can to just fuck women. You don't care if it's on national TV. You don't care about the consequences of that. And notice how Nick tried to use humor with his parents to get out of it. That's Nick's strategy. His social strategy is to use humor and charm to get out of accountability. He's the type of guy to say, oh, it's just a joke. So like when he was friends with Huda, then he talked shit about Huda to Iris. Oh, it's just a joke. When he made the racist comment about dissecting a cat and then did hashtag Chinese. Oh, it's just a joke. When his parents called him out for basically being a hoe on national TV. Oh, well, let's just not talk about it. That was his response. And Nick is the type of person where he will say things with a smile. He's saying it with a smile to disarm you. So if you're a femcel type, if you're the type of woman where you don't really get a lot of attention from men, that's very, especially white men, if you haven't grown up around Nick's, which is very obvious with Olandria, it's obvious that she's very monocultural. It's obvious that she grew up around like the black culture, because I can tell just based on her behavior in the house. She was very loyal to black people for no reason. People who were not really good friends. Like I feel like Olandria, she was too good to hang out with like Taylor, Ace, Shelly. That doesn't even vibe. Like they don't even match Olandria's vibe. But because of her monocultural background, she seemed to kind of be loyal to people based on the color of their skin. Oh, except for when it comes to romantic relationships, then you'll get with Nick. Why is Olandria with Nick? Well, because she feels like he wanted her. But that's still a sign of low self-esteem, because just because a man wants you, that's not a good enough reason. It's like, okay, he may want me, but do I want him? And for the people who are like, oh, well, Nick, he got Olandria a brand deal. So are you telling me you think Olandria couldn't get a brand deal by herself? You think she couldn't get that exact same brand deal by herself? If Olandria got a brand deal based off of Nick, and then they said, hey, yeah, we'll just photograph both of you guys. First of all, Nick did not say, he did not disclose the amount of money that she made, if any. He did not disclose the contract agreement. And also, if a brand was willing to include Olandria, that means that they already would have worked with Olandria to begin with. So no, she didn't just get to where she is solely because of Nick. That's more of an internalized colorist type of talking point. Like, oh, well, Olandria wouldn't have had that brand deal if it weren't for this white guy, Nick. Well, how do you know that? You're just proving that you kind of don't believe in Olandria. You don't really believe in her brand then. You don't really believe that she could be a model or that she could have that exact same photo shoot by herself. So that's also another kind of internalized bias. And I also want to talk about Nick's dynamic with Sierra. Nick only wanted to close off with Sierra because Elon was there and showing interest in Sierra. So it wasn't so much that Nick really liked Sierra like that. It was more so that he just didn't want anyone else to have Sierra. Also, if Nick truly had feelings for Olandria that whole time, which I don't believe, but let's say he did. If he truly was checking for Olandria, okay, so then that's the mentality of a cheater. That's the mentality of a cheater then. Because why would you be trying to get in a relationship with one woman and then you secretly want to get with another woman? Oh, but you're only locking down Sierra because Elon is showing interest in her. No, that's a toxic man. That's a narcissistic personality. So that's not high value at all. That's an extremely dusty personality. I don't care if he's white. I don't put people on a pedestal because they're white. I don't say that somebody's high value because they're white. Also, what happened to the hypergamy talking point? Nick is in his 20s and he's a nurse. Do you think that he makes $500K a year? You think he's a millionaire? What happened to all these women talking about, oh, hard wigs, soft life, black women in luxury? If Nick and Olandria were to get married today, I don't believe they're ever going to get married, but let's say they were to get married right now. Do you think that Olandria would be living a multi-million-dollar lifestyle. No, the fame that the Love Island cast has right now, it's at its highest peak right now because there is no other season of Love Island USA right now. But as soon as the next season of Love Island comes out, as soon as the new cast comes in on Love Island USA, all of these cast members today, their brand deals may decline a little bit. Kind of their fame, their visibility might decline a little bit. So if Olandria and Nick were to get married, she would be put in a Barbara the Builder position. It would be more of a 50-50. That's really the vibe that they give me. It's a 50-50 vibe. You're doing brand deals together. Okay, so you're both employees together. It's not like he's just coming out of the gate providing. This guy he was a nurse. He's a nurse in his mid-20s. How much money do you think a male nurse makes in their mid-20s? So they just graduated college a couple years ago. Oh, and did I mention the fact that Nick was basically homeless? Yeah. I bet the black community didn't look that up. So that's how I know that they're just pedestalizing whiteness. Nick before was in Jacksonville, Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And his lease ended in Florida right before he went into the villa. And then when he got back, he was kind of looking for apartments. And I guess he was trying to find somewhere to live, like in LA, or he just recently moved to LA. So you're telling me that a man who is between homes, so this is the definition of hypergamy? A man who is risking it all. I can see why Nick wanted to stay on the show at all costs. Nick didn't even have a place to live. He didn't even have an apartment to go back to. So I can see why he wanted to stay in the villa at all costs. He's like, bitch, I'm going back to my parents' house, or I'm going back to sleep on couches. I'm not leaving this villa. I need to make the most of my fame. So Nick is one of those people where he's just in survival mode. He's a young 20-something. He's just trying to survive. He's just trying to make it. He's an entry-level nurse. And then remember, they have to take a break from their jobs, or some people quit their jobs, so they can go on the show. And I know they get paid a little bit while they're on there. So for Nick, this is not just a villa. This is not just a fun social experiment for him. For Nick, this is his future. Just based on his financial status from before the show. His lease was ending, so he didn't renew the lease. And now he's like, okay, I'm moving to LA. And then I guess apparently Olandria is moving to LA as well. I'm not saying that they're moving in together, but if they are moving in together, that's an idiotic thing to do. That is not following the talking points that a lot of women love to brag about. Oh, I don't move in with no man if he ain't my husband. Okay, well then I better not see people supporting Olandria and Nick living together. But like I said, I don't think they're going to do that. I pray to God that Olandria wouldn't be that dumb. That doesn't sound like something she would do. Also, if you look at like the Love Island Reddits or look at all the live streams that they're doing, I saw that somebody was saying that Nick is actually not even sure if Olandria is moving to Los Angeles or not. And it's like, okay, so it's either going to be a long distance relationship or she has to move across the country. She has to move for a man. So I thought that goes against the talking points, the hypergamy provider talking points. Why does Olandria have to pick up everything and move? Nick was the one who didn't even have a lease or a place to stay. Nick was the one with all his shit in storage. Nick was the one who didn't have anywhere to go after the villa, which is why he wanted to stay there so bad. Olandria is not. So why does Olandria have to start off a relationship making so many sacrifices, moving for a man? That completely goes against the hypergamy talking points. Is Nick going to be paying for this? Probably not. And also for the people romanticizing their relationship when they were like, oh, they were in Greece together. I believe that was the brand deal thing. I'm not quite sure though. Okay, who paid for Olandria to go to Greece? Who paid for her meals while she was there? Who paid for her hotel while she was there? If it was the brand, that's not Nick providing for Olandria. That's the brand providing for Olandria because they want to make money off of her image. So that's not even the same thing. That's not the same as providing. That's not the same as Nick coming out of his pocket. Remember, Nick didn't have a place to live. So do you really think that Nick has the means to take Olandria to Greece and to pay for every single expense while she's there? And then for the people saying, oh, well, with Nick's post, with his racist post about Chinese people, trying to imply that Chinese people eat cats, he was a kid when he said that. No, actually, he was 18 years old, so that's technically an adult. Dating a woman who's black, that doesn't cancel out your behaviors. Dating a woman who's black and dark-skinned, that doesn't make you some Prince Charming. or some savior? Why is everybody looking to Nick as some sort of savior figure for Olandria, as if she can't stand on her own 2 feet? That is actually internalized colorism. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who are into politics, Nick is a registered Republican and he was living in Florida. So Florida has a reputation amongst unambiguous dark skinned black women. Florida has a reputation for being racist and colorist, texturist, featurist, anti black. Okay, well, Nick lived in Florida and was a registered Republican. Nick and his family are all Trump supporters. So for those of you who don't like Trump and all that, I know that a lot of unambiguous black women do not like Trump or kind of like Republican culture. So notice how that's all being thrown out the window. Also, you can have a boyfriend or live vicariously through Olandria and Nick. Oh, not to mention the fact that most of Nicolandria's fans, they don't look like Olandria. All you have to do, go on Olandria's Instagram right now and go click on all the profiles of the people standing Nicolandria. Go click on those women's profiles. They look nothing like Olandria. They don't have her body type. They don't have her straight white teeth. They don't have her makeup skills or her fashion skills. So they're still living vicariously through women that they don't look like. Also, let's talk about Olandria's judgment when it comes to men. Olandria is the same woman who picked Taylor. She's the same one who was over here caping for a man who wasn't even sure he was attracted to her. So Olandria has a history of picking the wrong people to be loyal to. Olandria had a very good friendship with Huda, and a lot of people hate Huda. Okay, so Olandria's history is that she chooses the wrong people to be loyal to. So why is it suddenly different with Nick? Why is it that Taylor was wrong for her, Huda was a wrong friend, she shouldn't have picked her, and now she's with Nick and then everything's perfect? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't even follow Olandria's psychological patterns. So if she messed up with men before, and remember she rejected that Jalen guy, I think his name was Jalen, the other black guy. The other guy was way more into Olandria than Taylor. So she practiced this ride or die loyalty to a man who literally was just he had no other options. That's the same thing. I notice a lot of the men, well, I'll just say Taylor and Nick, when they have no other options, they go to Olandria. So you're telling me that that's how black women should carry themselves? That's good? No, Taylor, none of the women were checking for him. Nobody was pulling him for chats. Go watch the show. None of the women pulled Taylor for chats. And then with Nick, as soon as he screwed up or got rejected or blown off by all four of the other non-black girls, then once he was going to get kicked out of the villa, that's when he suddenly is like, oh, actually, Olandria, I want to be with you. Because the option was either stay with Olandria in the villa or go back home. Remember, Nick was in between homes. So if you had to choose between being homeless versus being with this girl, which one would you pick? And also, I don't know if anybody else noticed, but even in the villa, Nick didn't even have that many clothes. He literally showed up to the villa with a couple of outfits and some vibes. That's all Nick has to offer, in my opinion, vibes. Nick is the vibey guy. He's got the smile, he's got the charm, he's got the humor, he's got the shaggy, curly hair, kind of this surfer. He just gives vibes. That's all I get from Nick. I'm not really getting anything of substance from Nick. Also, if you look at him and Olandria's interactions, Nick is very gossipy. That's another thing I really didn't like about Nick. He was a gossipy ass bitch. But him and Olandria, they were talking about other people. That was their main conversation topic in the villa. It was always them talking about other people. It was them gossiping about what's going on in the villa. So I'd be curious to know, what do Nick and Olandria talk about to this day? What do they really discuss? Because you've got Olandria, who's an HBCU graduate. Olandria seems a lot more mature than Nick. Just emotionally, she seems more mature than Shelly and Taylor, and that's why I said she shouldn't have even been around them, and I don't think she should be around Nick. So it's what are their conversation topics? Nick is a registered Republican. He's from Florida. He made stereotypes about Chinese people eating cats. He literally tried to hit on 4 other women besides Olandria. He fucked Sierra on national TV, then tried to double back to Olandria. So it's what do they have in common? So is this the new standard for hypergamy? And by the way, hypergamy where? Where's the hypergamy? Where's all of Nick's money? This is how I know that a lot of the women who are promoting interracial dating, Oftentimes it's literally they're just pedestalizing whiteness, because when it actually comes down to it, a lot of women will promote just getting with any attractive white man who gives you attention. Everything else goes out the window. His dating history goes out the window, him having a history of liking opposite women. If Nick would have been black, let's talk about this. Let's say Nick and Taylor switched places. Let's say Nick would have been black. Do you think people would perceive him the same? If he showed sexual interest in four other women who are not dark skinned, not black, and then tried to go back to Olandria, if Nick would have been black, people would be calling him Dusty all up and down the internet. But you know what? Let's pretend that Nick is perfect, okay? Let's pretend that he has no flaws. Even if Nick were the perfect guy, that relationship is still not going to trickle down to the black women who are pedestalizing it. So, for example, let's just talk about statistics here. So, Nick is approximately 6'2". The percentage of men that are 6'2", it's 3%. Okay, so 97% of men that you're going to come across, like white men or whatever, they're not even 6'2", so they're not going to have Nick's height. The majority of white men do not have straight white teeth like Nick. The majority of white men do not have Nick's body type with the abs and all that. So the women living vicariously through Olandria, whatever white man they meet in their everyday life, he's not going to be a model. I think Nick was a model, if I'm not mistaken. Oh my gosh, pause. I just looked it up. Nick is 24 years old. That's literally laughable that people are pedestalizing a white man who's 24 years old. That also goes against a lot of the level up and hypergamy talking points. They tell a lot of dark-skinned black women, don't get with a guy who's 24, because a lot of 24-year-old men who have kind of this pretty boy aesthetic, a lot of those men are not going to have that same provider mindset. So that's another delusion right there. Thinking that a 24-year-old has the emotional maturity, the financial maturity, he's got stability. Remember, he was in between homes at the time of the show. Nick graduated college in 2023. It is literally 2025. So even with him being a nurse, first of all nursing jobs are not the same. All nursing jobs don't pay the same. And for somebody who just graduated college like Nick, do you really think he's out here balling? Do you think he's making $500K a year? Do you think he's making millions upon millions of dollars? And with Nick being a model, that's a sign that he wants fame. He wants to be in that industry. He wants to be around female models. So once again, doesn't that go against the main teachings that they say in level up spaces for black women? I thought you're not supposed to go for a young 24-year-old man who is literally modeling and posing in his spare time, getting photographed shirtless, and doesn't that go against kind of this archetype of this masculine provider man? He can't really provide. He's too busy going to his photo shoots and getting his hair done, and they're putting hairspray in his hair right now. He has to go get a blowout on Saturdays just like you. I also forgot to mention, Nick was a part of a fraternity in college. He was a frat boy. So you're telling me that that's what black women are supposed to aspire to, is be with a 24-year-old frat boy? What type of culture and what type of behaviors do you think that frat boys engage in when they're in college? So just a few years ago, this man could have been drinking out of a keg. He could have been smashing every girl on campus. And this is supposed to be the pinnacle of masculinity? I'm supposed to aspire to this? Oh, and I also forgot to say, on that episode where they were sharing how many times they cheated, Nick actually admitted that he did cheat on his ex. And the ex actually came out and was talking about how she was suspicious of him cheating. Okay, so now we know that Nick also has a history of cheating. So you're telling me that the pinnacle of success for dark-skinned black women's dating is dating a 24-year-old frat boy who was in between homes and has a history of cheating, and also a man who actively pursued 4 women before he came to you, and only came to you when he was on the verge of being eliminated. And remember, he didn't have a home to go back to. So it's either homelessness or fame and money. Nick is a love bomber. So he's the type of man where he's a love bomber, or a player. I don't like using the term player. Let's call them what they really are, hoes. Okay, so that's Nick's personality. Every time a new woman came into the villa, he would sweet talk her. He would give her the sweet talk. He would do the charm. He would do his flirty thing. And then that woman gets tossed aside as soon as a new face shows up. Nick is like the white version of Ace. Anybody who's multicultural and actually watched the show can see this. Anyone who does not pedestalize white men can see this very clearly. And I've also noticed hypocrisy with how a lot of black women treat Taylor versus Nick. I don't like Taylor either. I mean, like I said, I think all of them are actually Dusties. I don't think any of these men should be put on a pedestal ever. But with Taylor, Taylor found another connection, which was Clark, and he moved on, right? And it's like, okay, so people got mad because Taylor moved on with Clark, but you didn't get mad that Nick literally jumped through, he tried to hop through 4 different women and then come to Olandria. Olandria just accepted Nick. That's really what happened. And then Sierra, I mean, she did accept Nick. I also feel like Sierra has low self esteem as well. So Sierra was willing to accept Nick, even though Sierra knew that Nick was two-timing her and still entertaining Bella. And then people are like, oh, well, it's a show. You're supposed to date. You're supposed to explore your options. Remember, Nick was still exploring his options even after the show. So even after all the fame and money, he still didn't lock it down with Olandria. He still didn't become exclusive with her. He wanted a couple months. How long has it been now since the filming ended and the reunion just came on? So even Nick, after the show, he's like, no, let me experience my fame and still fuck other women, basically, because that's what he's doing. Let's be honest. He wasn't exclusively dating Olandria, so he's dating other women who most likely have different phenotypes than Olandria, by the way. So what happened to that talking point? Oh, I want to be his preference. Okay, well, you weren't. Respectfully, you weren't, because he never pursued you. If he wanted to, he would. On the first day or whenever, he would have pulled you for a chat. Olandria and Nick were already friends, so it's like, anytime that you guys were discussing things as friends, he could have pulled you for a chat. So it's like Nick literally had more loyalty to Sierra than he is showing towards Olandria. Because after the show ended, he still didn't want to immediately become exclusive. He still wanted to F around a little bit. Nick has treated women way worse than a lot of the other guys on Love Island did. Nick treated women way worse. I saw him lying more. I saw him omitting certain information, or he would say the same line to multiple girls. Like I said, he's like the white version of Ace. I actually think Nick is worse. And a lot of black women will say, oh, well, don't try to think you're special because, the same way that a man treats other women is how he will eventually treat you. Okay, so then what does that say about Olandria? Look at how Nick treated Bella. Look at how Nick tried to go after Andrina. He tried to go after Jaden. Look how Nick treated Sierra. So what does that say about the future of how he's going to treat Olandria? Do you guys think that Nick and Olandria are going to be together 50 years from now? Do you think all their brand deals and all their fame is going to still be on this level 50 years from now? Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.